Ndị be anyị ndewonu. Ọ bụ Ada Igbo na-ekwu na Igbo Media. N'Igbo Media, anyị na-ewetara unu ọtụtụ ozi gbasara ihe na-emegasị na Biafra Land, n'ala Igbo na mba ndị ọzọ. N'ụbọchị nke taata, o nwere ihe bịara n'iru akwụkwọ anyị nke anyị ga-agụpụtara unu n'ụbọchị taa. Anyị gụpụtachaa ya, unu egee ya ka ọha n'uju. Ị ga-esie ya, ị drọpụọla your comment, like kwa this our video and gbasakwa ya ka o ruo ụmụnna anyị n'ebe dị iche iche arụ. Breaking news: Nigeria split into three as EU chief Ursula von der backs Biafrans, seeks US intervention on Maazị Nnamdi Kanu's case. Ya bụ ozi ka anyị ji bịa tata na Igbo Media. Ị ga-esie ya bụ ozi, gbaa mbọ gwa anyị iche ma mekwa ka ozi alụta ụmụnna anyị n'ebe dị iche iche aka. Ngwa gere ya ka ọha n'uju.
American President, dear European Union, this is Günther Fehlinger-Jahn speaking. I'm calling here from Vienna to recognize the Republic of Biafra. Biafra in ex-Nigeria, Nigeria, to my regret, and this is a non-working state, and they have committed genocide in 1967 to 1970 against the Christians of Biafra and the people of Biafra. And now they are as well, since the last 15 years, living in a terrible conditions. They are often led for some jihadists to kill them, and there is atrocities about atrocities. And it's much better for the people of Nigeria if Biafra becomes their own state, and they can sort out then inside Nigeria the other issues, or maybe there will be other regions which are better off in this non-working state of Nigeria. So ex-Nigeria must start with Biafra, and the international community, contrary to the 1960s and 70s, must support the independence of Biafra Republic. In the 1967-90, that tragic years, the West was at its weakest. There was the Vietnam War, and tragically Nixon, who was positive for the people of Biafra, but he did very little, and I want to apologize for his failures, and I want to especially criticize and also apologize for the imperial UK and French governments who were actually supporting, due to all interests, Nigerian centralists' crackdown on the poor people of Biafra. And we, as Christians, as Europeans, should absolutely stand with Biafra and support them. And that's why I call on President Trump and on the European leaders, Ursula von der Leyen, please, I beg you, I pray, recognize the Republic of Biafra. It's no need for military intervention or these things. Just do the political steps of recognition of these poor people to have their own state, to live in security. And of course, then recognition goes with the ability to be recognized and also to defend yourself. It's much better than having a military intervention in Nigeria, having the Biafra Republic equipped and armed to be able to defend herself against the potential invasion from the Nigerian centralist forces of that failed state. And so here the defense comes with the recognition, and that's exactly how we should do. Biafra Republic, please, my friends, I beg you, recognize it and build a strong, viable state, part of the free world. And that's what I call the Fellinger doctrine and also the Fellinger economics. Build a decent state, part of the free world, no BRICS, but OECD, no kind of alignment with genocidal Russia, but alignment with America, with the European Union, with the free world. And we will have a free trade agreement, open economics, of course the flat tax, I like very much, and the currency, which Nigeria never did, to join the Euro-Pact area. This is the best policy for West Africa, and Biafra will be a proud member of the Euro-Pact area, and this will be delivering much more prosperity in the future, and we will trade and we will work together.
Again, the purpose of this event is to try to make sure that the Congress of the United States, the administration of this country, our friends and allies around the world, and not least, of course, people of goodwill in this country and elsewhere, are on notice that Nigeria is at risk of disastrous collapse, that the forces that we've just been talking about are in the process of taking down a country that is the most populous in Africa, with horrific implications, not just for the immediate vicinity, the Lake Chad region as it's known, but for that continent, and almost certainly others beyond. Congressman Wolf mentioned Bona, talking about a catastrophe that would make what has happened to Europe in the past few years, as a relatively small number of people migrated there with unbelievably chaotic consequences, look like a day at the beach by comparison. We're on notice. And the question is, do we have to wait until this horror is upon us before something is done about it? Or do we take steps now to try to prevent that? And I don't think any of us is saying that this is a panacea, but the appointment of the appropriate individual with the requisite authority. I just wanted to underscore what Congressman Wolf said about having the President of the United States essentially personally empowering Senator Danforth to lead the effort on behalf of our country to alleviate that situation. That has to be done again, and it has to be an empowering of a person with the stature and the capabilities needed to do two really vital things. One is to pull together the government agencies that have responsibility for pieces of a problem like Nigeria. The Defense Department, as well as, of course, the State Department, USAID, the UN mission of the United States, the National Security Council, and others, to come together with a common, appropriate, and much needed policy approach. And then secondly, at least as importantly, to be able authoritatively to represent what that approach is to the government of Nigeria. So they know who they're dealing with. They know that this is, in fact, the policy, and they can't go, looking for people who will provide some sort of alternative that might not require as much of them. So it's those two vitally important things that have to be done. And on behalf of, again, the Save the Persecuted Christians Coalition and team, I just want to say I think this is a moment of truth, a moment when we will find a difference being made by an administration that is about making a difference on behalf of religious freedom and those who are being denied it around the world. And let me just take a moment to say, as bad as this situation is, it is just one of the areas in the world in which particularly Christians are suffering. By some estimates, it's as small a number as 215 million Christians being brutally persecuted. By others, it's as high as 500,000. Excuse me, 500 million. This is on our watch. It is unconscionable. It must be challenged, contested, and if possible, stopped. And that's what this coalition is about. And I pray that we will be able, with the help of people like Congressman Estes and Congressman Wolf and the Archbishop and our coalition and countless others, to see this problem sorted by the appointment at the earliest possible moment, preferably by the end of this year, because these elections are approaching, of an individual with the requisite authority of the President of the United States and the assignment of making both the U.S. government policy coherent and clear and effective, and communicating that, again, authoritatively to the government of Nigeria, who in the end is ultimately responsible.
Very clearly and very something that we must understand, that it has become a global thing. Now we are seeing the reaction that the EU president is saying it, that the issue of self-determination must be resolved in accordance with the international law, and that the Biafran restoration and sovereignty is something that they have come to understand, and that is highly overdue, and they are going to take a decision which they have already taken. That's what the woman was actually saying, and he was saying this thing in the presence of the NATO chief, who was also present in that gathering, that they will not repeat 1967 stand on Biafra, but that this time around they are trying to get EU nations and EU leaders to look into and begin the process of recognition of Biafra as a sovereign nation. But currently now, the EU has agreed that Nigeria should be split and Biafra sovereignty should be something that has actually followed non-violent approach according to United Nations Charter, and they have come to a point that they have to, recognize Biafra as a nation. Just like what Gunter Jan was saying always on social media, that he has taken up the case to the global community, to the global world, to the EU. And right from time, the EU has always taken a certain resolved resolution on the Biafran agitation and has continued to question the rationale of Nigerian stand on international law that guides self-determination. One is Mazi Nnamdi Kanu's approach, non-violent approach to self-determination, and the issue that has to do with peaceful and solidarity movement of the IPOB that has been recognized all over the world. It is only in Nigeria that they manipulate and try to tarnish the image of IPOB. But outside Nigeria, IPOB is being celebrated as one of the largest, most peaceful self-determination movements. And that is what the EU president recently, made it very clearly that they are working out a lot of things in that regard with the United States government, with the British government, and then of course, let me use this opportunity to also alert you by May next year, the United States and United Kingdom will peacefully, sign a different charter that will lead to territorial recognition of Biafra as a sovereign nation outside Nigeria completely. This is another breaking news, which we must understand that of course a lot of things are being working out. It's not about Mazi Nnamdi Kanu. Like Mazi Nnamdi Kanu will always say that it will take 250 years for you to be able to break the ranks and hierarchy and the secret of IPOB. IPOB is a formidable IPOB leadership is a formidable team, and that understand what it means by command and control. So if you look at what this, yes, another area, people who are still trying to come into the limelight, people who are carrying this assignment all over the world, are POB members, So if they are terrorists, I don't think that the world will be welcoming them. You can see what the EU president is saying. Currently now that already planned that within their context of agreement and commission and committee and resolutions are agreed on every meeting that was centered on the international resolve on Nigeria and Biafra and the quest for self-determination, that Biafra has already been granted and Nigeria automatically, has been disintegrated, and what they are waiting is the global recognition of Biafra and what other modalities that would be worked out in terms of territorial integrity, and other factors that will interest that will come in later. So you can see what is actually playing on. But Nigerian government pretends over some of these, success that have been recorded as a result of the world coming together to show solidarity. You can see what is happening in the United States of America. The UK is even automatically silent and have been able currently now to disengage themselves from their from the northern political class, showing that that relationship between the North and the British government under Lord Lockhart and all that might have expired 2014. And anything that happens in terms of their colony is no longer their business. You can see what is happening in Africa. In less than 4 years, over 10 African countries has been overrun by military governments. Democracy has continually collapsed, is collapsing in Africa.
Daalụ nne maka isonyere anyị n'iru akwụkwọ n'ụbọchị tata na Igbo Media. Ọ bụ na ihe anyị na-ewetara gị dị gị mma, gbaa mbọ gbasaa ozi a ma mekwa ka ozi a rute ụmụnne anyị n'ebe dị iche iche aka. Ngwa ka ọ dị.